start off by offering an apology for Monday's show. Because on Monday's show, I didn't go hard enough on the Eagles. And I probably should have. I probably gave them a little bit too much grace. Or at least I thought that until I watched Hard Knocks on Tuesday night. So allow me to just maybe recalibrate a little bit, okay? So we all watched the Eagles shit the bed against the Cowboys, right? We all watched it happen. Horrific. 21-0 lead in the first quarter. They go on to score no more points. They lose on a last-second field goal, 24-21, and everybody hated themselves and hated each other. Then, on a short week, the Eagles went and took on the Chicago Bears, and they got dog-walked. I think that would be putting it very nicely. They got dog-walked. And Vic Fangio, who has been an absolute stud as a defensive coordinator for this team, looked outmatched by Ben Johnson. And so you go, all right, that kind of sucks. That hurts. Doesn't feel particularly good, but okay. And so we've all been kind of postulating, and we've all been kind of opining, and throwing out our thoughts and our latest sentiments around the team and whether or not any of it is fair and justified or not. And sports talk radio has become a cesspool that is even worse than I remember it being the last time I actually cared enough to pay attention to what a lot of the local people were saying. But there was something that happened on Hard Knocks that got response today, and I am still trying to wrap my head around why this person put out the take they did, but it was a horrible one. Now, there are two people who I think will go or have gone quasi-viral in Philadelphia for their takes based on what we saw in Hard Knocks. If you haven't watched the in-season Hard Knocks with the NFC East, I'd encourage you to go do that over on HBO Max or wherever you get your shows. It wasn't an incredible episode. It wasn't something that's like must-see TV, but there are a couple of narratives that got dispelled, at least from my view, by watching the show. Now, it was weird because when they said that they were going to do an in-season look with the NFC East, I thought that was going to be like, hey, first episode maybe kind of covers the first 5 or 6 weeks. Episode 2 picks up from there. And maybe by the time you get to the last episode of the in-season Hard Knocks, it's getting you ready for the playoffs. And then you kind of go your separate ways. This picked up with the Cowboys game. This picked up with Cowboys-Eagles. Now, maybe it's because two of the teams in the division have largely been irrelevant, in the Giants and in the Commanders. I don't totally know what the thought process was, but they started with that Eagles-Cowboys game. And there are a few things that came out of that game that you go, not ideal. The Bears game, though, is where I think you're going to see some viral moments. So there is a clip going around right now of Spike Eskin over on WIP's afternoon show asking a caller, I think it was, when is the last time you saw Jalen Hurts talk to a wide receiver after a play? Like, almost either taking responsibility for it or just like when the series is over, seeing Jalen Hurts go over and talk to a wideout. Well, that myth or whatever got dispelled on Hard Knocks because we very clearly saw Jalen Hurts go over to Devontae Smith. Now, I want you to kind of go back to that awful Bears game. And there's a throw in that game where Jalen Hurts appears to throw behind Devontae Smith. And it was one of the things that people really got on Jalen Hurts' ass about was that he threw behind Devontae Smith on this very simple slant. And this slant would have taken Devontae Smith right into the end zone untouched. Well, what we learned is that, surprise, surprise, we, the viewers, we, the fans, we, the people who aren't in the huddle or part of the game plan, we don't actually know what happened in that moment. We can assume that Devontae Smith was going to run a slant and that Jalen Hurts just threw behind him. Bad on Jalen. However, we learn in Hard Knocks that he thought Devontae Smith was going to stop his route. So he threw to where he expected Devontae to be, not to the slant. And what you see, and we'll run the risk here of playing the clip on the show, because I think it's important that people have it. There is a clip from the show where they very clearly explain what these two guys saw. Now, again, Jalen appears to throw behind Devontae Smith. And I want you to hear what is said on the sideline between Jalen Hurts and Devontae Smith after a play that, again, would have easily gone for a touchdown, but in this case did not. Let's go over and listen to Jalen Hurts and Devontae Smith. Devontae's kind of like, hey, what did you see? And here we go. Here's Jalen Hurts and Devontae Smith on the sideline.
I thought when I pointed like this, that's my fault. I thought you was going to settle down some more.
I took that what we talked about.
So there's a moment before the play where Jalen Hurts made some kind of a hand gesture, and he thought that there was a communication understood with Devontae to stop his route. And Devontae said, no, because remember, like we talked about it, we practiced or whatever it was. So there's Devontae going up to Jalen saying, hey, what did you see? Jalen saying back to Devontae, this is what I thought was happening. Devontae saying back to Jalen, no, this is what I thought. So there you go. There's your communication. But this is the part that I think dispels some of the idea that Jalen Hurts doesn't ever take responsibility for what he does or says.
Fuck. It's a play I got to make. Y'all keep doing what y'all doing. Here we go. We'll finish the next one. That's a play I make.
Okay. So can we now dispel the notion, at least, well, there are a few things there. One, I love the F-bomb out of Jalen Hurts. I love the emotion out of Jalen Hurts. We always see the very polished guy who kind of speaks like the modern day version of like a Confucius says, right? Jalen Hurts kind of speaks in motivational posters that you can find in your principal's office. So it's nice to actually see Jalen Hurts have fire to him and not just be that very polished guy that we see at press conferences. I think it also kind of dispels this notion that Jalen Hurts somehow thinks that he's above whatever's going on in the game and that he believes he's infallible. There you see the conversation between the wideout and the quarterback, and then the quarterback not only going, all right, yeah, you're right, but also walking up and down, and what we could see, well, when I froze it and then took it down, he's going over to Cam Jurgens, to Landon Dickerson, to the rest of the line, the rest of the offense, and he's owning up to it and saying, that's a play I got to make. That's a play I will make. We'll get it done next time. That, to me, is like the sign of a leader, right? Like, that's not him looking at Devontae going, yo, dipshit, you should have known what this meant. You should know what the hand, that's on you. He didn't say that. He goes, all right, I got it. And then owns up, walks in front of his guys, walks in front of the offense, and takes responsibility for not making the play. So isn't that something that some of the fan bases wanted? Isn't that some of like what people have been complaining about all season? He doesn't show emotion. He doesn't take responsibility. Oh, he missed Devontae Smith on a wide open slant. Well, now we have an idea of why he missed him. Now, there's another thing that's going to come out of Hard Knocks, and it's already making its way out. There's a terrible, horrible, no good take that came out today. And when you see who it came from, you will not be surprised. But there's this idea out there from at least one radio person in Philadelphia that the Eagles are lacking in self-awareness and that the Eagles are trying to pass off the blame for things going sideways on the fans and not looking at themselves. So we're going to go out to a radio host who I think just largely is wrong far more often than he's right. We'll go out to 97.5's morning show. Not to Sal Chunas, seems like a lovely guy. No, we're going to go to John Kincaid because John Kincaid had a dog shit take this morning, and it's so bad that we have to highlight it on the show. So John Kincaid is of the belief right now that the Eagles are tone deaf and that the Eagles are trying to pass it off as if everything that's going wrong right now and the narrative around the team, the Eagles are trying to blame the fans. All right, let's go listen to John Kincaid. Then we'll come back. We'll piece it all together.
One thing I do know is this. The Eagles' lack of self-awareness is incredible. Because there was guys, again, they know they're mic'd up. So they know they're wearing a mic. Hey, Scott.
I already hate this, by the way. One, I hate the audio quality. Two, I hate this idea that, like, just because some of these guys get mic'd up, and we don't know how many of them are mic'd up. Do they mic up the whole team? Are there boom mics? Are there field mics? Like, okay. Anyway, these guys are mic'd up. So then we're supposed to believe that the entirety of the filming of Hard Knocks, these guys are now going to sanitize themselves and are going to restrict themselves and censor themselves because these mics are on. I would guess that a dude who's wearing a bunch of pads who gets into the rhythm of practice and such probably isn't thinking about the microphone he's wearing. But that's just me. Maybe I'm just a crazy guy. It's entirely possible. So first, we're pointing out the fact that these guys are mic'd up and that they should be more aware of what they're saying. Okay, let's continue.
In a mic. Hey, you know the sky's falling outside the building, right? You heard, right? You know, the same people who tell you we don't listen to the outside noise.
Yeah.
They're in there on the microphones and, all this drama.
Okay, we're going to pause there for a sec. You don't need to read a Marcus Hayes takedown piece. You don't need to listen to Joe Giglio talk about wondering if Tanner McKee is a better option at quarterback or what the offense would look like with Tanner McKee instead of Jalen Hurts. You don't need to listen to those things to be very, very acutely aware of the fact that the fan base is very upset. You don't need to read or to listen to everything to know that this fan base is upset. You don't need to read or listen to everything to know that the national media is looking at this Eagles team going, what the hell is happening? You don't have to consume any of that. You know why? Because it's everywhere. And even if the players themselves aren't listening to it, even if they're not reading it, someone in their family might be. Somebody in a group chat maybe. These guys are aware of the public sentiment around their team. And so here we go. John Kincaid. Already he's off base, but we'll continue.
They make it out as if the drama is coming from outside the building. Yeah.
A lot of what is being said is from the outside. The one thing that you can point to pretty consistently, early part in the season, maybe up until the last few weeks when he's had a lot of success, is A.J. Brown on social media and A.J. Brown's responses to some questions in the locker room. And to those maybe not being the best questions or being the kind that definitely pour some fuel on the fire. Okay, that is about the only questionable thing that you could say from within the Eagles locker room has been a drama-filled instance. We don't have a player right now who's come out and said something like Brandon Graham did last year about Hurts and A.J. Brown not having the same kind of friendship that they once did or being close like they once were. We don't have that, right? What you have is a team that very clearly seems upset, a team that very clearly doesn't seem in sync, but I wouldn't say that like the players themselves, with the exception really of A.J. Brown, has given you much to really run with. Saquon Barkley hasn't come out and said, this is a total waste of my time. The offensive coordinator is a dipshit and I wish he was gone. Jalen Hurts isn't going out there throwing his receivers under the bus. The offensive line isn't saying Jeff Stoutland doesn't know how to coach us anymore. The defense isn't wondering why Jahad Campbell's snaps per game have dropped significantly over the past few weeks since Nakobe Dean's return. We don't have any of that. Nobody's openly questioning, does Adoree Jackson actually want to play football or not? Because it feels like every game, like second or third play, he's out like Jason Peters used to be. No, like a lot of the noise around the team is coming from the fan base that's upset, angry, by the sports talk radio hosts who are fanning the flames of the anger and the discord, by some of the writers who are writing some of the things that they are. But I wouldn't say that it's necessarily the team itself causing all the drama. So again, John Kincaid, that's I think 3 points now that he's off base on, but we'll go back out to him.
Dear Philadelphia Eagles, the drama is coming from inside the house. And what I saw last night is you somehow are going to try to spin this, that the drama is coming from your fan base. The drama is coming from inside the house. But you are going to try to deflect the blame. Own it. It's all yours. It's all yours. And it was a waste of time. Hard Knocks is a waste of time.
Okay, so dog shit take, but let's dissect why it's a dog shit take. I don't want to just once again on this show periodically bring John Kincaid's takes on here just to shit on John Kincaid. It's easy, but I'll do it like this. No, the drama, the anger, the fuel that's been added to the fire, the flames that have been fanned, that is not from the Eagles locker room. Try as John Kincaid may want to try to, I don't know, approach this with a rational, level-headed mindset, maybe. There is not a single soul right now that has come out from the Eagles locker room and said, I do wonder what Tanner McKee would look like with this offense. Not a single soul. The worst you can get, and as I'm kind of running it back here, the A.J. Brown comments and the Instagram posts, not ideal, not good. The people that I actually do think Kincaid maybe has a point on are the rats, right? The rats that we talked about a couple weeks ago that tend to run out to Diana Rossini or whomever else, whatever media person will listen and give a platform to. The rats that continue to go out and say, oh, there's some frustration with Jalen Hurts internally. The rats who are worried about whether or not they're going to be able to right the ship. That part, John Kincaid might be right. But I don't think that's exactly what's leading all the fodder here. The past week, right, since the Cowboys game and the Bears game, there has been a lot of discussion about whether or not Jeff Stoutland has lost his fastball as an offensive line coach. There has been conjecture about whether or not Vic Fangio got exposed by Ben Johnson, and if that's going to be something that other teams are going to be able to take advantage of going forward. There have been questions about whether or not Jalen Hurts is truly the guy to build around, or does he need a perfect team built around him? I saw Spike Eskin's clip from the afternoon show a day or two ago where he compared Jalen Hurts to Ben Simmons and said, well, people used to make the case that you had to build this perfect team around Ben Simmons to get the most out of him. And now it feels like you have to kind of build the perfect team around Jalen Hurts. I don't think it's a fair comparison. I understand to some extent where he's coming from. There are things Ben Simmons wouldn't shoot. Jalen Hurts doesn't seem to want to run. What we don't know is, with Ben Simmons, we know he didn't want to shoot. With Jalen Hurts, we don't actually know if it's that he doesn't want to run or if it's an edict that's been passed down from Sirianni and or Patullo. Like, you don't want your quarterback to take too many hits. Are they worried that Jalen Hurts is going to get hit too much if he decides to scramble more? Are they not calling designed runs because they don't want him to take additional abuse? And they know that in order for them to get to the peak, to get to the top of the mountain, they need Jalen Hurts to be healthy. I don't know. But here's the thing. Neither does any other sports radio host, any podcaster, even any writer. The only way to really know is to have a direct conversation with Jalen Hurts, Nick Sirianni, and or Kevin Patullo, whether it's on the record, off the record, on background, whatever it is. That's the only way to know for certain. What we can see game in and game out is that Jalen Hurts isn't running nearly as much as he used to, and that in order for this offense to be as dynamic as it can be, he probably does need to run more. That is true. That part of the Spike Eskin take is correct, but I wouldn't compare Simmons and Hurts in that, like, Simmons, who I have a soft spot for, and who actually went on Instagram the other day and said he would play in Philly for free. He just needs to get his body right. I don't think we ever questioned Jalen Hurts' desire to win or desire to get better. With Ben Simmons, it's easy because you could always come back and say, he never worked on that jump shot. He never seemed willing to work on that jump shot in games or to take threes in games and kind of put that nugget of doubt in the minds of the opposition. Hurts has not been like that. So I don't think it's really an apt comparison. I understand the idea of these guys might be refusing to do something that would fundamentally help the team, taking threes or running the ball more respectively. Now, I want to circle back to this idea that Kincaid kind of put out there about the issues with the locker room and the issues that the calls are coming from inside the house, the complaints, the drama is coming from inside the house. What did we learn a few weeks ago? I played it on the show. I did. Played it on the show. Jason Kelce talking about how Lane Johnson is one of his best friends, was one of his best friends during his playing days. And yet there was a time in an offseason where those guys didn't talk for weeks. I think he said for 6 weeks, 8 weeks, where there were comments about the Chip Kelly system and the Chip Kelly practices. We didn't know that. Now, that could be drama. Was that drama inside the house? It was. Did it ever bubble to the surface? No. Last year, Brandon Graham goes on WIP and says the thing about Hurts and A.J. Brown. Well, that was some stuff bubbling to the surface, and Brandon Graham didn't mean to cause a firestorm, but it very clearly did. I think a lot of the anger is coming from outside the house. I think that nothing could be further from the truth than this idea that this is all manufactured by the Eagles themselves. Is there drama? Sure. Are there disagreements? Sure. Is that part of any workplace? It absolutely is. Is it part of any locker room in any professional sports team? Indeed it is. This notion that the media or that the fans, but I would really put this more on the media, has no fault whatsoever in the dissolving, the eroding of confidence in this team is nonsensical at best.